believe that's his name. He just went by Priest. Now, I asked him why he goes by Priest. He said, it's my last name. Now, what does this guy have to do with the price of tea in fucking China? Not a goddamn thing. What he's got to do with is neo-Nazis. This guy grew up in the system, same as me. Grew up with primarily black kids beating the fuck out of him because he was white, same as me. He was dropped off out of the system at the age of 18 with nothing, same as me. Unlike me, while he was locked up, he got to hate a lot of people for the color of their skin. Since he was made homeless at 18, racism was all he ever knew before that. Well, people tend to group up with and hang out with like-minded people. He started hanging out with like-minded racists in Boulder, Colorado. He also started hanging out with me, and he liked my way of thinking a lot more. Now, what's so important about this feller? He's a neo-Nazi. He doesn't like black people. Literally hates black people. Has no qualms with stating that outright. He will tell a black man to his face. And he'll explain to that black man why, if that black man will hear it. But one thing that man will not do is allow another person to be victimized in front of him, regardless of their goddamn skin color. This man grew up in the fucking system getting jumped 6-on-1. He grew up as a small white guy in the system like me. So he got his ass beat a lot, got assaulted a lot. Because people are afraid of the bigger guys. When they see a little guy, they think, oh hell, I can do whatever I want to him. Just like me. Mr. Priest remembered what hurt him the most, and when he got into fights, that's what he used on others. He remembered what hurt him and what made him tap out. And when somebody attacks him, that's what he goes for, whatever's going to make the other person give up. Now, why is this guy fighting for black rights if he hates black people so much? Because he hates, even more than that, people who victimize the underdog, who gang up on the underdog, who gang up on somebody because they're little, because they're the wrong color, because they don't have the right amount of money. Mr. Priest was locked up in the system without friends, family, or parents that were a part of his life. He didn't have anybody putting money on his books. He didn't have anybody to send letters to or to get letters from. He just had to sit his time out till he turned 18, became an adult, and they couldn't hold him anymore. Now, when he come out onto the streets of Boulder, Colorado, and was hanging out with those racists, he didn't hang out with them for very long. He tried to turn his life around. He even wanted to get some of them tattoos removed, but he couldn't afford it. But he's also spoken up about how the homeless are treated nationwide, regardless of skin color or gender, regardless of religion. Now, I can't really call this guy KKK because he's not KKK. He's Aryan Brotherhood. But it's not just Aryan Brotherhood. This started in his youth. There's no Aryan Brotherhood in youth facilities. There's people who grew up with racism, but ain't none of them may be. Not a single one. You can't be an Aryan brother until you are a grown-ass adult. Other than that, you're just a kid, an impressionable kid in the fucking system. Probably scared for dear fucking life. That's when you first get in. Once you've been in a while, you realize what social etiquette is. It's a lot different in there than it is out here. I've noticed that there's a lot of neo-Nazis that I've known in my life that are right now at this very moment fighting for black rights. Why is that? Because they see it as their rights too. These are Americans, goddammit. They're Americans. These idiots believe in the stars and stripes and the Constitution and all that shit. They believe that even if they don't like you, you have a right to a fair fucking trial. Many of these neo-Nazis that I know, they didn't get a fair trial because they were broke. They're fighting for homeless rights, for the rights of the poor. These neo-Nazis have identified the problems and the issues, and much of their racism stems from being targeted for the color of their skin in a situation that is about poverty, not skin color. Who's more likely to end up on the streets, statistically, a black man or a white man? A white man? No, a black man by a lot. Are there less black men on the streets than white men on the streets? Yes, by a lot. But there's also a lot larger population of white people compared to black people, isn't there? Black people only account for about 60 million out of a population of 332 million. These neo-Nazis who are fighting for human rights for the homeless, yeah, black people, given their population size, they're 3 times more likely to be homeless. Almost 3 times more likely to be homeless. And that depends on where you're at. If you take nationwide statistics, yeah, white people are a lot more likely to be homeless, but you have to take out the statistics in rural areas because we're talking about less than 2% black population. Less than 1% in most places. Most rural areas, it is less than 1%. So, when you figure in the areas that black people are willing to live in, you know, all these black people sticking up for Jason Aldean and his racist song, these black folks are smart enough not to move to a fucking small white town. Okay? They don't fucking live there. So they can support the song all they want. That's fine. But these black people won't live in a small town. It's because they know, same as they're taught to blame everything on whites. In small town America, they're taught to blame everything on blacks and Mexicans, Hispanics and Jews, Muslims. Anybody who's not a straight white fucking Christian is to blame in a small town. Right? Anyway, that's enough rambling at this fucking video, I suppose. The state of emergency this nation has come to. We're giving up a bunch of piddly shit to a bunch of fucking whiners. See, it was one thing to fight for the rights of gay people. Yeah, I'm down with that. Fighting for the rights of trans people. Yeah, I'm down with that. When they were fighting for equal rights. But now we've got trans people, women, and black people, minorities of every color and religion, whining about the piddly white girl shit now. Pissed off that they don't have the American dream. Most of us white people don't have it either, just so you know. Most of us white people have to work our entire lives to not have a 2-car garage, certainly not have 2 cars in the fucking garage if we do. Most of us, statistically, are not that much better off than the rest of you. But we have a tiny bit better privilege in some areas. But that's all wiped out by laws that basically state that white people are in the wrong and men are in the wrong. If it's between a man and a woman, the man's wrong. If it's between a black and a white, the white's wrong. If the white's not wrong, then it means that the cops were racist and everybody else was racist. Statistically, in Boulder, Colorado, for the population size of black people are at a 5-to-1 ratio likely to be arrested and convicted. However, that depends on how you take it. If you take those statistics during summer bunny season, there's no black athletes at the college. So, the black population of Boulder, Colorado, with all of the black students that are there, the black population of Boulder, Colorado raises up to almost 4%. Now, you might think that that's very minuscule, but you got to consider this is a city of close to 200,000 people, and this is just an increase in black students part of the year. The rest of the time it's at around 2%. That means almost 2% of the population is increased. We've gone from 2 to 4% just because school is in session. Now, just that percentage right there means that a black person is only 1.2 times more likely. That's 0.2. That 1 is basically a null and void because it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You only have a 0.2. That's right. You're only slightly more likely to be arrested. But that's why Darren O'Connor, when he did those numbers, he made sure that he did overall arrests for a year, and then he only took the population size for if it was just during the summer months. And during the summer months, as we all know, well, that's when college students are temporarily not college students. Summer break. A lot of students take that time to go traveling. See the world. Go van lifing for a couple of months. Go to the beaches they've never been to. Try surfing for the first time. Or go to a bunch of parties. Hell, you can still go to the frat house. It's not like you've been kicked out. If you're part of a fraternity, you can still stay there. But if you're a college student and college is out, you're probably not there. During the Christmas season, the black population at the college at CU decreases a bunch because just like the white students, the black students, many of them are going home to their families. It's the holiday season. The homeless population, on the other hand, these are much more realistic. This is a 346-to-1, according to Darren O'Connor's numbers. Homeless people are 346-to-1. This is how likely they are to be arrested and convicted. 81% of those nationwide who are incarcerated were homeless when arrested. It's a 91% chance, or a 91% population size in Boulder, Colorado. 91%. Yeah, it's that significant. So these neo-Nazis, when they're fighting for our rights, yeah, they're neo-Nazis, but they're fighting for our rights. Who's more likely, given the population size, who's more likely to become homeless, a black person or a white person? I mean, if black people had the same exact population size as white people do in this country, black people would be a lot more likely to be homeless. There's about 600,000 homeless people right now. About 22% of them are black. 22% out of a population of 16%. 16% of the American population are black. 22% of those who are homeless are black. 24% of those killed by police are black. 61% of those killed by police are homeless. 51% of those who were killed by police are disabled. 96% of those killed by police are men. When I say that these neo-Nazis are fighting for our rights, what I mean is that they're fighting for our rights. Swastika tattoos and everything on some of them. Still fighting for your rights as a black person, your rights as a Hispanic person. And some of them have a lot of hatred towards immigration and immigrants, and still they believe that you have an honest chance here in the United States. Even as an immigrant, even if you are here illegally, they think that you should go back home. But they still think that you should have the right to come here legally. And they believe that if you are harmed here in the United States as an illegal immigrant or an immigrant, that it is still wrong. If you are an illegal immigrant, these neo-Nazis are not going to say it's okay to rape you just because you're an illegal immigrant, even if it is a white guy that rapes you, because they still have some morals and believe that it is morally abhorrent to rape anyone, regardless of nation of origin or skin color. Now, BLM, if y'all could get your heads out of your asses, stop being a bunch of shitheads, and actually fight for we the people, instead of bitching about Jason Aldean, who's never been to a small town, so far as I can tell. Meanwhile, apparently neither of these black folks who want to stick up for him and say that it's not racist, well, he would know how racist it is if he knew a goddamn thing about small towns. No, his lyrics aren't racist. His ignorance is. So to those of you neo-Nazis who are fighting for our rights as human beings, I want to thank you on behalf of everybody I know, regardless of their skin color. I want to thank you for the black people, the white people, the red people. Hell, if there's purple people, I'll thank you for them too. You may not agree with what I have to say, but you will defend to the death my right to say it. That's a famous quote. Well, actually, the famous quote is, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Now, me defending your right to say it doesn't mean that I'm going to pretend that you can say whatever you want without fear of consequence. Yes, I believe that you should have the right to accuse anybody that you want of anything that you want, because you can. You have a mouth. As long as your vocal cords work, you can accuse anybody of anything. That is your right, because you have a mouth. But you also, because we live under a social contract, can be can be held responsible if the legitimacy of your words and its incorrectness results in other people being killed. If you pretend that, let's say we've got this imaginary character named Chris, and you pretend that Chris raped you because you didn't get what you wanted from him right when you wanted it. If Chris ends up dead and he didn't rape you, somebody beat him to death because they were told that Chris raped you, and then it comes out that Chris didn't rape you, it's not just that guy who beat Chris to death who should go to prison. You should go to prison too. No, I don't think you should go to prison for murder. I think you should go to prison for accessory to murder. I also think that if you accuse somebody of doing something they didn't do, then you should be liable to that sentence. If you accuse somebody of rape, and it carries with it a life sentence, and you weren't raped, I believe that you should be serving a life sentence Yes, I defend your right to say it. But you need to be held responsible to your words. And I am responsible to mine. Even though they don't always come out right. The more stressed I am, the less likely they are to come out right. And most of my stress is, just like most of yours, is that I can't take care of myself. I don't earn enough money to take care of myself. There is never enough money. And I am expected to jump through hoops that I can't fucking afford. For all those neo-Nazis out there fighting for the rights of homeless people, I've been looking. ACLU doesn't fight for our rights. BLM doesn't fight for our rights. MMIW and MMIP don't fight for our rights. The only people that are actually fighting for homeless rights, other than myself and a few stragglers, there's a group of neo-Nazis actually fighting for homeless rights. Not just rights for white homeless people, not just rights for men homeless people, not just rights for Christian homeless people, but rights for homeless people. While women want to carve out their own spot and say, oh, well, look, we're women who are homeless. We have it worse, so look at us, look at us, look at us. And then we got black people. Oh, look at us, look at us, look at us. They're harming black people out here. We're out here because we're black. Well, hold on a second. There's lots of people homeless who aren't black. I don't think your argument holds any fucking water, motherfucker. Meanwhile, well, all of these groups have chosen to turn a blind eye to members of their groups harming the homeless, even homeless of their own skin colors, of their own genders. We got neo-Nazis who are fighting for the rights of trans people, and gay people, and women people, and Muslim people, because they're fighting for equal rights. No, I'm not going to join any neo-Nazis, even in a fight for equality, not until BLM comes to the table and is willing to do the same thing. The majority of the black people locked up were homeless when they were arrested. The majority of them were harmed because a woman pretended that he might. You don't have to commit a crime to go to prison in America. You just have to piss off a vindictive woman who either has access to drugs or uses her vagina as a tool to manipulate people. In both of those cases, as a male, you're fucked. You have no rights as a human being, regardless of skin color. Anyway, my voice is starting to go a little bit hoarse, and I'm trying not to actually have to really push my voice in order to be heard, because I don't want it to be sounding like I'm screaming at people. And I'm not trying to sound like Sam Elliott. Anyway, I'm going to say one more again. Although I make fun of the KKK and BLM for not working together, this group of neo-Nazis that grew up in the system, most of them. This guy Jason, not Jason Aldean, Mr. Priester. He's not a part of this group. But the thing is that it's not a group or organization. It's literally just a bunch of racists who are out on the streets and sick of this shit. They're sick of seeing it. No matter who it's happening to. They don't want to see an Asian being harmed. They don't want to see a black person being harmed. They're racist because they're afraid, and they know to be afraid. When you grow up in the system having your ass beat for being white, yeah, you are always going to be afraid of black people after that. Unless you're weird like me. For some odd reason, despite the hell that I grew up in, when I see a black person in an area, it puts me at ease. Like, hey, there's black people here. This place might not be so bad. But if there's no black people there, it's hard not to see it as being as horrible as Chapel, Nebraska. That's a scary fucking place. That's some place Jason Aldean would get along just fine because he'd have the money for the finest house in town. Oh yeah, people would line up to be his friend.